Modern manufacturing is selling you disposable trash, designed to break the moment the warranty expires. Most people walk past a literal fortune in thrift stores because they're too busy looking for shiny plastic. You're ignoring assets that will outlast the collapse. We need to talk about the difference between planned obsolescence and survivor bias. The economy runs on a cycle of buying, breaking, and replacing. It's a tax on your ignorance, but if you know what to look for, you can opt out of that tax completely. I'm breaking down the 10 thrift store finds that are actually survival assets. Items built before cost-cutting engineers stripped the quality out of existence. These aren't just antiques. They're functional tools that possess superior metallurgy, better chemistry, and actual repairability. The industry wants you buying their fragile garbage every 2 years. We're going to look at what you should be stockpiling instead to secure your future for pennies on the dollar. Let's get into it. Number 1, cast iron cookware, vintage cast iron. I'm not talking about the rough, pebbly stuff you buy at big box stores today. I'm talking about vintage Griswold, Wagner, and Lodge produced before the 1950s. Here's the real problem with modern iron. To save money, manufacturers stop the final step of the production process, stone grinding. They leave the surface rough to hold the factory pre-seasoning, which is just a shortcut to get it on the shelf faster. But that rough surface causes food to stick and makes cleaning a nightmare, leading you back to toxic non-stick pans that flake carcinogens into your eggs. Vintage iron, specifically pieces made between 1890 and 1950, was cast and then machined smooth by hand. The surface is like glass. This creates a natural non-stick polymer bond with oil that modern pans can't replicate without decades of use. Furthermore, the casting walls were thinner and lighter because the iron quality was purer, making them responsive to heat changes rather than just being heavy heat sinks. When you find a vintage logo on the bottom of a pan in a thrift store, you aren't buying old kitchenware. You're buying a metallurgical standard that doesn't exist in mass production anymore. Number 2, 100% wool blankets. Most warm blankets sold today are made of polyester or acrylic. That's essentially plastic spun into thread. Here's what happens when things go wrong. If a synthetic blanket gets wet, it loses its insulating properties immediately. Even worse, if you're using it near an open fire or a heater during a blackout, synthetics melt. They melt right onto your skin. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Wool is the only fiber structure that retains 80% of its insulating capability even when soaking wet because the cortex of the fiber absorbs moisture while the cuticle repels it. It's naturally fire retardant due to high nitrogen and water content. You can throw a wool blanket over a small fire to smother it. Look for Hudson Bay stripes or heavy military surplus blankets. These textiles contain lanolin, a natural oil that resists bacteria and odors, meaning you can use them for months in a grid-down scenario without washing them. Modern synthetic blends are simply future landfill that will freeze you to death when the heater quits. Number 3, manual kitchen tools. Specifically, hand crank mixers, grain mills, and meat grinders. The reality is that your $400 stand mixer is a brick the second the power goes out. But even when the power is on, modern appliances rely on internal nylon or plastic gears. These are engineered failure points designed to strip if the torque gets too high, forcing you to buy a replacement unit. Vintage tools, particularly American-made brands from the mid-century like Echo or Universal, utilized hardened steel gears and direct drive mechanics. A vintage hand-crank meat grinder allows you to process game or livestock without electricity, turning tough cuts into usable protein. The egg beaters from the 1950s run on ball bearings that are smoother than anything produced today. These tools give you the ability to process food, make flour, and bake without reliance on the grid. In a survival scenario, caloric processing efficiency is king. If you can't process the food you have, you starve. Grab these mechanical multipliers while they're sitting in the junk bin for $5. Number 4, vintage Pyrex and glassware. But here's the biggest issue. You have to know the chemistry to know the value. Not all glass is created equal. In 1998, the major US manufacturer changed the formula of their glass bakeware from borosilicate to soda lime glass. Borosilicate glass is added with boron trioxide, which gives it an incredibly low coefficient of thermal expansion. You could take a vintage Pyrex dish from the freezer and put it directly into a hot oven, and it would handle the thermal shock perfectly. Modern soda lime glass is cheaper to produce and more resistant to dropping, but it fails catastrophically under thermal shock. If you change the temperature too fast, it explodes. When you're looking at thrift stores, look for the block capital letter logos or specific colors like the primary bowl sets. You're looking for older chemistry that allows you to cook over open fires, wood stoves, or fluctuating heat sources without your cookware turning into a fragmentation grenade. This is a safety issue that the industry ignores to save a few cents on manufacturing. Number 5, handsaws, and bit brace drills. We've become addicted to battery-powered convenience, but batteries are just perishable inventory. Modern handsaws found in hardware stores are what we call impulse-hardened. The teeth are super hard, which sounds great, until you realize they're brittle and cannot be sharpened. Once that saw is dull, it's trash. It's a disposable tool. You need to look for vintage saws like Diston, made from high carbon spring steel. These plates are tapered, meaning the saw doesn't bind in the wood, and the metal is soft enough that you can sharpen it yourself with a triangular file forever. Pair this with a vintage bit brace drill. A high-quality brace gives you incredible torque, allowing you to bore large holes in hardwood silently and indefinitely. When the grid fails, the guy with a DeWalt is useless once the charge runs out. The guy with the vintage steel is building shelter. This is about owning the means of production, not just renting it from a battery company. Number 6, oil lamps and lanterns. Oil lamps, specifically cold blast hurricane lanterns like Dietz. Everyone stocks up on LED lanterns and AA batteries. But here's the real point. Electronics degrade. Batteries leak and corrode contacts. Circuits succumb to moisture. An LED lantern is a complex system that's impossible to repair in the field. A vintage oil lamp is simple physics. It uses kerosene, lamp oil, or even vegetable oil in a pinch. The cold blast design recycles partially spent air to create a brighter, more efficient flame that's windproof. These lamps produce both light and a surprising amount of heat, which helps reduce condensation in a tent or small room. When you find these in thrift stores, check the tank for rust. If the tank is solid, you have a light source that will outlast any lithium-ion cell. They were the primary light source for humanity for a century for a reason. Don't rely on a microchip to see in the dark. Number 7, metal sewing machines. If you think this is just for grandmothers, you're missing the point of survival. Textile maintenance is a critical skill. Modern sewing machines are plastic shells housing plastic gears. If you try to sew through heavy canvas, denim, or thin leather with a modern $200 machine, you'll strip the timing gears or burn out the weak motor. They're designed for light hobby work, not repair. You need to look for black cast iron machines like the Singer Model 15, 66, or 201. These machines feature all-metal internal drive shafts and gears. They're practically bulletproof. They can be converted to hand crank or treadle operation if the electricity is gone, giving you a completely off-grid repair station. You can repair backpacks, tarps, winter coats, and tactical gear. In a long-term economic downturn, the ability to repair what you own is more valuable than the ability to buy new things. These machines are the heavy artillery of household logistics. Number 8, carbon steel knives. Carbon steel knives. You'll find these in the kitchen section, usually looking brown, stained, or neglected. Most people pass them up for shiny stainless steel. That's a mistake. Stainless steel is chromium heavy, which makes it rust resistant. But it also makes the steel difficult to sharpen and prone to chipping. It creates a slick edge that slides off tomatoes, rather than biting into them. Vintage carbon steel, like old hickory or sabatier, will rust if not cared for, but it takes a razor edge that modern stainless can't touch. That dark stain on the blade is called a patina. It's stable oxidation, magnetite, that actually protects the metal. But here's what really matters. In the field, you can sharpen carbon steel on the top of a car window, a smooth river rock, or the bottom of a ceramic mug. It's field serviceable. Modern super steels require diamond plates and precise angles. Carbon steel requires only a rough stone and technique. It's the superior tool for a chaotic environment. Number 9, pre-digital reference books. Pre-digital reference books. We've outsourced our collective memory to the cloud. What happens when the internet goes down, or when a subscription service decides to update a manual and remove the dangerous DIY sections? You lose access to human history's technical knowledge. You need to look for reference. Materials printed before 1980. I'm talking about medical textbooks, the old Reader's Digest fix-it-yourself manuals, and encyclopedias. These books were written in an era where the assumption was that you would repair things yourself, not call a service tech. They contain exploded diagrams of engines, detailed guides on setting broken bones, and formulas for chemistry that modern books have sanitized. This is hard copy data that cannot be edited remotely, deleted, or paywalled. Knowledge is weightless, but you need a physical backup when the digital world goes dark. Number 10, full grain leather. The leather industry has mastered the art of lying to you. When you see genuine leather stamped on a belt or jacket, that's actually a specific grade, the second lowest grade. It's essentially the plywood of the leather world, layers of scraps glued together and painted to look like hide. It will peel, crack, and fail within a year or two. Full-grain leather uses the entire epidermis and dermis of the hide. It's the strongest, most durable natural material available for belts, sheaths, and jackets. In a thrift store, you identify it by looking at the cut edge. It should be one solid piece of organic material, not layers. You can also test it by scratching it. A full grain will show a mark that can be rubbed out with oil, while genuine leather's plastic coating will just scratch permanently. A full grain item will last 40 years and mold to your body. It's armor against the elements. Stop buying plastic belts that snap when you need them to hold gear. The things filling the shelves of Walmart and Amazon today are future garbage. They're liabilities disguised as assets. They extract wealth from you by forcing you to replace them over and over again. The items we discussed today are survivors. They were built when manufacturing was about pride and utility, not quarterly profit margins and planned obsolescence. By hunting for these in thrift stores, you're engaging in arbitrage, trading pennies for tools that have intrinsic, tangible value. Stop looking for brand names you recognize from TV commercials. Start looking for materials: cast iron, wool, carbon steel, borosilicate glass. Build a life that doesn't depend on a supply chain that hates you. That's it for today. Hope you learn anything new, and I'll see you in the next one.